Now, look, ladies and gentlemen, if there is one thing that we can admit as Xbox players, the PlayStation is a big part of gaming. And look, I know a lot of people are going to have some pushback for this because when you say market leader, I've always said they are the market leader, and they currently are. They're the market leader for console sales. They are outpacing. It's 2-1 at the minimum. It could be a little bit more, but console sales, as we know, aren't the number that is the final number, right? But look, Sony, they're very popular. It is the casual box. 85+% of gamers that play on PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 Pro. And I'm being generous when I say 85% because the hardcore equate to about between 8 and 10%. But I'm giving them the 15% of hardcore players on PlayStation. Well, Dirt Griggity had his One Man Dark Man podcast the other day, and actually a couple of people had sent me this list, and I actually just looked it over. I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I just kept it moving because there were other stories to talk about, or I didn't think anybody wanted to hear about it. And then I heard Dirt Griggity talking about it, and he brought up so many incredible points of view when you consider what has actually happened and the rhetoric by a lot of the PlayStation purists or fanatics, if you will, that think that PlayStation doesn't need to go third party. PlayStation doesn't need PC. They just need their own players to buy their games. Because listen, look, I don't shy away from saying I really like PlayStation games. I like their IPs. I like Astrobot. It's one of my favorite platformers, I'd say, in years. And you know what? If you want to fight with me on it, well, you're going to be fighting with yourself because I'm only telling you what I like. I'm dying for a new Uncharted of some sorts. Are we ever going to get it? I got to be honest with you, it's unlikely. And I thought for sure that because of how well 4 did, that they bring the daughter in and let her become the the protagonist, and then get a new antagonist, and you could bring the parents in on the back end. I think that would be cool, but I don't know if it would sell, right? Well, Crispy Bomb, this list, again, comes the way of Matt Piscatella's Circana LLC, and this list is 1 through 20, and on one side of the list, it has most dollars made, and on the right hand of the list, it has most units sold. Crispy, I want to read the list verbatim. And what's interesting is who's not on this list. And there are a lot of PlayStation IPs that are not on this list. Now, if you're interested, folks, and I'm going to read verbatim from the actual post from Matt. It says all-time US. Now, this is for the United States, and we know that the US is the biggest region when it comes to PlayStation. It says that all-time US top 20 best-selling PlayStation games, physical and full game digital for publishers in the Digital Leader panel. Now, there is a bit of a side note here, and we're going to get to that side note because it's an important part of something I said many, many years ago. I'll get to that in a second. But at number 1, no surprise, for most money made on PlayStation, Grand Theft Auto 5. Not a surprise. At number 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. At number 3, Red Dead Redemption 2. 4, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022. 5, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Now, that is very interesting because according to several people in the community, Call of Duty is dead. Black Ops 6 was not going to sell because it was on Xbox Game Pass. And mind you, this list covers from January 1995 through July 2025, ladies and gentlemen. That is 30 years. And Black Ops 6 is at the number 5 spot for most dollars made on PlayStation. Think about that for a second, ladies and gentlemen. Call of Duty is far from dead. But at number 6, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Number 7, another Microsoft-owned IP, Minecraft. At number 8, Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Number 9, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Number 10, another IP that Xbox owns, Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock. Now, here is the first PlayStation game, Marvel's Spider-Man at number 11. And then at number 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 are all Call of Duties. At number 18, Marvel's Spider-Man 2. That's pretty impressive, right? Number 19, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. And at the 20 spot, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And what's wild, Crispy Bomb, is these are dollars made on PlayStation, right? 11 of the 20 are of course Call of Duty, because we know that it sells there. It has a very big audience. It also has a very big casual audience that plays Call of Duty, right? Both the single player and, well, more importantly, the multiplayer, where they spend money on microtransactions. Now, if you guys and gals remember a couple of years ago, when we would all be sitting around and wondering the sales of some of these games, right? You would see a game come out like Astrobot, right, gentlemen? And Astrobot sold 1.5 million. You're like, man, listen, I gave some smoke for that, because that game is brilliant. I loved every second about it, except for that last level that I couldn't get the platinum. It really pissed me off, but that's fine. That's old man skills. What can I tell you? But interestingly enough, almost like clockwork, months would go by, and then we would see these bundles, these Astrobot bundles, these Spider-Man bundles, these Grand Theft Auto. Horizon had a ton of bundles, right? Because no one was buying the game. So they got slick. And I have always said this, ladies and gentlemen, that Sony uses smoke and mirrors for their numbers when it comes to their first-party games. And this list proves it, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, again, if we're going to go to units sold, I'm going to just read the list quickly. So, of course, I don't want to leave out one half and make, oh, boom, you're trying to, frame a story that best suits me. Nope, I'm not doing that. Here is the second half of the list. Now, the list, again, I'll put it in the show notes if you want to check it out for yourself. This is units sold. Number 1, Grand Theft Auto 5. 2, Minecraft. Red Dead Redemption 2. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. Marvel's Spider-Man at 6. Now, we also have Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022, Black Ops 6 at number 11 for most units moved, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, and then, of course, you have a couple of, finally, first-party games, The Last of Us and God of War 2018. The Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, Call of Duty Black Ops, Rainbow Six Siege at number 17, and the last 3 are all Call of Duty. So, Crispy, if this list is for the U.S., and it covers the last 30 years. And in both sides of this, both dollars made and units sold, there are only a handful of PlayStation first-party games. This, I guarantee you, is the exact reason why they are going third-party, because their own players are not buying their games. And this list proves it. I'm going to get your thoughts, man.
Well, I mean, first off, everybody loves Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty, man. Like, my God, I wouldn't, because this is a 30-year number. Like, this is kind of crazy. If you look at it, my surprise is where's like a SOCOM or any of those, because
yep.
if you really remember those times, there was a lot of consoles out there, and also there's a lot of people buying. Probably the only subsidy was, kind of like a Game Pass would be Blockbuster back then. But if you really think about it, Call of Duty was not that popular. Grand Theft Auto just became popular when like a SOCOM came out and stuff. Like that would probably have been in there anyway. And most of these games that like to see Black Ops 6 already up there, like that tells you a lot. It tells you that, because if you really think about it, like we also got to think all these free to play games as well, are part of the market now, and that wasn't the case back then either. So you really, and it's not 1-to-1, like like you see God of War on one side for units, then you don't see it at all for dollars. And that's where you say, oh, well, why isn't it at least on the list on the other side? Maybe because they bundled it.
Yes. Now, yes. You know what? Let me just add this little piece of context, Crispy, so you can go ham on this. Now, at the bottom of the list, it says note. And this is where Sony gets into the smoke and mirrors and the funny business about their numbers sold. Sales of software packaged in hardware bundles are not included in the best-selling titles charts. Very interesting, Crispy Bomb. Please continue.
Well, I mean, we kind of said it. So, because if you look at it, Spider-Man, that makes total sense. I mean, one of the most popular characters of all time. People are going to purchase it to be Spider-Man. Okay. And The Last of Us, like as popular as it was, to not be in that dollar section. I mean, it tells you a lot. It tells you that they got to lower the price in some way on some of these games to get the units moving, or they got to bundle it, or, the sales that used to happen, which I don't feel like happen enough anymore, at least for PlayStation players. I don't see a lot of people throwing out their bargains like we do. It's one of those things. Like, is Sony going to continue to fight what is in front of them? Like, you have all the Call of Duties. Everybody's always buying Call of Duty. You got Grand Theft Auto coming out. I truly believe like we're at the point where Grand Theft Auto is going to eat an entire 2 months. Then people are not going to want to release around it. So we're looking at what's going to come out next year for PlayStation. They say, you're going to have one big game. I would think that maybe they could push out 2, because they probably know that they're in a pickle right now. You got so many games this year. You got all the anniversaries next year for Xbox. If they come out with new hardware at a somewhat decent price for the power it gives, you're going to sell some units, and then Sony's going to be looking at it like, oh man, like we got to get on to the next generation, even though they just came out with a Pro. And you look at that, and I don't believe, I haven't seen any numbers for the Pro specifically. Like, it's just like, nope. Any numbers they give is just all lumped in together. And if they're going to have an announcement, they're going to like scream, and say, hey, we sold 10 million or something. Also, like, as popular as they consider Horizon to be and want to continue to make iterations, Horizon Forbidden West, and all the games that are involved in that ecosystem, you don't see any of that on there. So it's a dilemma. And I think because there's new leadership over there, they're saying, okay, like certain IP, like a Spider-Man, yeah, we'll sell a lot, but can we sell way more, even down the road, maybe year, 2 years down the road, get those numbers up, even at full price, because now you're on another ecosystem. These are options that they have, and I don't think this helps anybody that's like exclusives. If that's all you care about, if you look at this list, you got to say to yourself, they're gonna slowly follow what Xbox is doing. So just be prepared, because if you are going to stand on that hill, trust me, I was one of the few that did not stand on that hill. I said that I'm good. We're going to see a lot of games go over time. And the only thing I ask is to keep, I know Phil don't like timed exclusive, but if you're going to put out IPs like Gears over there, you need to give some time in between, or there's going to be a lot of people who are like, oh, well, I'm just going to play on my PlayStation. Now, some of us, like me and Boom, we're like, we like the controller better. We like the, Xbox Live and Game Pass much better. Some people don't care about that. And clearly, you could say, hey, some people are just buying one or two games. That shows you right there. Yep. Somebody will be like, okay, we got Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto coming out this year. Now, the one question I have is no Maddens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No FIFAs.
No 2Ks.
I mean, maybe FIFA. Okay, maybe if they pulled the European chart, that probably would be on there. But like, even not having any of the Maddens on there at all, that's a little weird. Basketball, I wouldn't say would have been on it, but football, definitely, like, you could see that if they haven't cracked it already, they're never going to. Even maybe Xbox, I would be interested to see their list. I'm sure there'll be plenty of third parties. I'm not saying that, Xbox, sure. But we would have probably Halo on there, just like, but I think it would be more, in line, like you'd see it on the units and the dollars. So you really look at it, and it's crazy that we're at that point where we, even for 30 years, it's always third party. And, and this is just for PlayStation, if you think about it. So it's a little wild. And with the free to plays, I mean, there's so much competition right now, and they're going to have to change some things. So we'll see.
Fuzzy Belvedere, we got to get you back in, and thanks so much for rejoining us. Folks, I know I saw some questions in the chat. This is called Yet Another Zombie Survivors. If you're interested, it's $15. I'm not making anything on it by giving joy to the world, because this game is cool. The hook is the fact that you have 3 different units that are in your crew, and there are, I think, 12 characters to unlock. Depending on how you place them, like which 3 you pick, some of them work better with others. It's a lot of fun. But Fuzzy Belvedere, let's talk about this list. Now, again, this list in front of me comes the way of Matt Piscatella's Sorcana LLC. It lists the top 20 most dollars made on PlayStation from 1995 through July of 2025. It also has the top 20 units, the most units sold on the PlayStation in those 30 years. And again, it's a pretty stacked list. What's incredible about it is Call of Duty kind of leads the charge on both sides, dollars made and units sold. Now, granted, on the units sold, PlayStation does have a couple of their bigs in there. Marvel's Spider-Man, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. You also have The Last of Us and God of War in there as well. You don't have units moved on the second half of the list, Spider-Man 2, oddly enough. But Spider-Man 2 does make an appearance at number 18 at dollars. And again, I think there's going to be, if you missed the first half of what we talked about, just for context, so there's no confusion, the reason why there aren't Horizon and there aren't any of the bundled games in here is because, based on this list, and it says on the bottom of it, note, sales of software packaged in a hardware bundle are not included in the best-selling title charts. And I've always said this, and again, folks, I've been doing YouTube for 8 years this November, and I can tell you that I have said that Sony has always used smoke and mirrors for their total sales when it came to their games. Like, you've seen them do it. Oh, no, the Platinum Seller, it sold, 25 million units or whatever. And according to this list, that does, bundled games don't count. Now, why that is, I have no idea, but it does show you that not only has Call of Duty been leading the charge, interestingly enough, on both sides, Black Ops 6 is in this 30-year list, and it's high on the list. Black Ops 6 for dollars made on PlayStation is at number 5. That is pretty incredible considering it just released last year. That's how many people are playing Black Ops 6. I thought it was dead, but apparently people are still buying it on PlayStation. Let's get your thoughts, Fuzzy Belvedere.
Well, there's a couple of things that I kind of extract from this list. Like the one thing is there have been lists or Excel spreadsheets showing a variety of games doing better than they probably actually did. Some of it may be because of bundles, but I'm kind of surprised that nothing in the Gran Turismo legacy appears on this top 20. I would figure for at least units at the least. But that goes to show why when there was talk of sales numbers for like Gran Turismo 7, they bundled that number with Horizon Forbidden West. And I think between the two, it was like 16 million units, which obviously wasn't good enough to make the list as far as between those two titles independently. So I'm kind of surprised at that. And that goes to show that some of those Excel spreadsheets might be a bunch of BS kind of thing. But we kind of thought that with the way that they showed that Ratchet and Clank did better than it supposedly did, and how Astrobot, the second one, did better supposedly than it actually did, kind of thing. The other thing that's strange is, okay, so Spider-Man 2 made it on the dollars list, but we all know that sold better. Now this is just on PlayStation. But this goes to show that when we were saying that a majority of Helldivers 2 sold on PC, there's a good reason why. Like if we're being told that it outsold Spider-Man 2, but it's not on the list, well, that's because it's part of PC and not the PlayStation Nation that carried that, as we've all kind of figured out. But some people were like, no, it's more like 60-40. Go back to school and learn math. But all in all, I think this goes to show that, Microsoft's approach on getting some of these IPs under their belt is paying off. And, God forbid they acquire or Take-Two, then they'll pretty much own everybody's list of top 20 games. But I'm actually surprised that we don't see more for, their first party in this. So I would say, since things like Ghost of Tsushima is not on this list, and there's a few others that should have been over the 10 million mark. This list probably bottoms out at somewhere in the 15 million mark range. So as far as units, then on the dollar side, I would have to believe it's got to be in the hundreds of millions range, where, okay, Spider-Man 2 being a $70 game makes the list, but it didn't, make the list on units. So that's it's kind of a weird list, but it shows that, like Crispy was saying, exclusives aren't really what people claim they are when it comes to these. I mean, sure, it might help somebody that might be on the fence of which platform to pick, and this particular exclusive might lure them in. But it seems like more so than anything, their friends playing that popular Call of Duty game that everybody's talking about at the office or at the schoolyard or wherever the case may be, has more of a pull as far as what platform people play on. And considering how popular Call of Duty is, and like both of you have pointed out, Call of Duty didn't really become popular until more recently. Like the earlier days of Call of Duty it wasn't a 20 million unit seller, in the early days. But now, like their worst one, I think, does 11 million in the first 2 months, even though it's the most downrated video on YouTube kind of thing. So the fact that the list is completely littered with Call of Duty goes to show that PlayStation is more of the casual box, or has become more of the casual box over the past 25 years or more. And I don't know why people can try to continue to fight that narrative. I think, the one and done scenarios with their first party are starting to show its weak points to per se, as far as, the budgets are extremely high. The costs of making these games are high. The return on investment, as we can see, since a lot of their first party isn't charting on this list, it might not be worth the $300 million,
Yep.
investment in a Spider-Man 3, let's say, or more, for that one, without having it, the licensing fees that they're getting beat over the head by with Disney and Marvel and stuff. So, hey, great on Microsoft for acquiring, Call of Duty and Minecraft. They're definitely up there. I'm curious to see where a Madden would fall. Would Madden be in the top 25 or the top 30? And considering how things have changed over the periods of time, I'm assuming free to play doesn't really make this list, but I'm wondering how many dollars from like a Fortnite have actually been made. Like it to some extent, because it's a free to play game, I'm wondering if there's a separate list for just the microtransactions itself, for that free to play game to even make this type of list. Because I would have to believe Fortnite should be somewhere around there, give or take, considering how popular it's been over the past few years. But yeah, it's eye-opening to see how popular Call of Duty is. And, Spider-Man being their leading IP right now, even though it's a, shared IP through them and Disney and Marvel and stuff. That goes to show why they're so hesitant on new IPs, even like this. What is it? The Intergalactic. We'll see how that pans out, but I think that's why they're kind of like risk adverse on making these new IPs, and they've been remastering some of the classics to the point where now, yeah, you'll get The Last of Us on this list for units moved because it's been remastered. And I wonder, with The Last of Us, are they counting all of the first one from PS3 all the way up to PS5? And PC, I guess as long as it's on a PlayStation, it should count from 95 on. So I guess with Last of Us making it, it's because it's been, re-released so many times. I don't think they would say, okay, Last of Us and then Last of Us remastered kind of thing.